Hello and Namaskar. Welcome to another session of BW4HANA Tidbits, where I share some of my knowledge and experience.
My name is Debanshu Mukherjee, and today we are going to discuss the inventory data flow query logic, how to change the validity slice, and remodeling using the new BW4HANA Cockpit. So without any further ado, let's get started. Two things I want to show you in the pre-session Q&A. First is we'll see that how the query works on an inventory data flow based on a particular key date, and then we will see how we can change the validity by adding further characteristics. Is that possible or not while the data is there? So data is there in this ADSO. So if I just look at the active table for this ADSO, let's quickly make sure we have data. Okay, it's asking for an ABAP. So I did not log into ABAP. So let me quickly log in there. Okay, so first we'll make sure that the ADSO has data in all the relevant tables for the inventory. So say for example, for active table, first of all, it should have data. Yeah, the one which we loaded, right? It has the data. And what about our validity table? So validity table has the data from 17 September to 25th, which was the oldest to the latest range of records which we have in our inventory. And then we also had something called your reference points. Reference points is basically your record type 1, which is your initial stock or opening balance. So we looked at that also. So we have the reference points updated. When there is a delta movement, our reference points are updated. When it's a historical movement, the reference points are not updated. And there was a SQL view number 8 also, which we saw, which gives us the non-cumulative calculation at the back end if you want to see. Usually, sorry, not this. Okay, so usually it will happen at the query level, but at a backend level if you want to see, so this will be the non-cumulative total stock, which is non-cumulative. So all the issue totals on all the movements which are not of type 1 will have 0 value, but the movement which will have record type 1 will have your non-cumulative total stock calculation done. So this is at the back end. Now we'll quickly see how a query works on top of this inventory. So what we'll do is we'll go to our ADSO. So we will go to, okay, this ADSO automatically should be highlighted. There you go, inventory overview. And here what we'll do is we'll right click and we will say new and query. Okay. So we will quickly create a query. We'll call it ZQ underscore ZDINVBT3, the name of the ADSO, and then a sequential number. So we'll call it inventory overview for query. Okay. And this is going to be a very simple query. The only thing which we will do is the key date. So don't worry, we'll discuss the queries and BW query options, what are the different tabs and everything we'll discuss about the query. But right now for demonstration purpose, I'm just going to quickly create the query. So we can have material, we can have the plant. Okay, and then we will have, what we'll have is quantity total stock, not the issue and received, because at the query level we know that the non-cumulative is calculated. So we can have the total stock. And then what we will have is, we'll go to filter and then we will put a variable for key date. Because if you see the general tab, there is something called key date, right? So key date with respect to inventory is very important because non-cumulatives are always calculated at a time reference. You'll have to ask as of what date you want to see the quantity, as of what date you want to see the value. So that's where key date will come into picture. And what we will do is we will put a variable. So you can either give a constant value, that's possible by editing the key date, or you can give a variable for the key date. So let me use a variable a standard variable. All the standard variables will start with 0. All the custom variables will start with Z. So the standard key date for query, yeah, I think we can select this variable 0 CIPM cal day key date. If you want to see what exactly this key date variable is defined as, what you can do is you can go to the cal day, because this is based on cal day. Expand the characteristic value variables 0 CIPM. Let's find that. This one is. So if you open this, you will see what kind of variable is this. This is a mandatory variable with initial value possible. This is input ready. That means user can provide input. And this is a manual input, not defined by any code in the backend or authorization or formula or anything else. It's just a simple characteristic value, manual input default value variable. So this is what we exactly wanted. So we are good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put a filter on my calendar day. Okay. And that calendar day should be restricted. So right click and you can say restrict. That calendar day should be restricted by the user provided date. So I'll go to variables, and which is the one which we used? 0 CIPM key date, right? This is the one. So put it here, 0 CIPM cal day key date. So we'll put it here. So what we have done is we have restricted the cal day based on the user input. So first step is in the general tab, we said that there is a mandatory variable based on the calendar day, and that will feed the key date for this query. So that means the user can enter the input, but restricting is the second step. Okay, you got the value from user, but you also have to restrict the query. So then in the filter tab, in the fixed value, in the filter pane, not the default value, in the fixed value here, you can put fixed values or you can put variables also. So I'm using the same variable which the user is using to provide the input, and I'm gonna restrict it based on that. Okay, so now we'll save this query, and we will, before running this query, I just want to go back to the previous session, and we will make sure we have this in front of us. Okay, so that we know that how query is working. So just a refresher, on 22nd of September, the values were 100 and 200. If I give 17 or 18 or 21, these minus and plus will happen and the value will be shown. Or if I give a future date for the key date, then these plus and minus will happen and it will provide it. So let's start with 22nd and let's see if 100 and 200 is shown, and then we can go to 17 and we can also go to a future date and see what is the value shown. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll execute the query. How to execute the query? So there's a data preview here. You can go to data preview, or you can go to RSRT transaction code within Eclipse and execute. Both are possible. So I'm going from here, reporting preview, and it's going to ask you the key date. Okay, so there it is, asking for the key date of the query. So I'll just browse and we'll choose any date and we'll modify that date. So we'll give 22nd of September 2020. Okay, 22nd of September 2020. And what should be the value which should come up? We should expect M100 P4 400 100 and M200 P400 200. So let's see. So I'm submitting that, and there it is showing you M100 P400 is 100 PC and M200 for the same plant is 200 PC. Okay, so this is how the query will calculate. Now if I change the date, say for example, if I go to 17, so let me ask Ashish, according to you, if I give 17 as my key date, what should be the value for M100 and what should be the value for M200?
150 0.
150 Hello? And 0.
Yeah, M200 should be 0.
Why it should be 0?
Because there is no Nothing which is there in the database for M200 on as of date 17th. So M200
if nothing is there, then after issuing 300, 200 was still remaining. How is that possible if nothing was there? Okay, logically speaking, you are right. You're right. But from a query standpoint, the query, what will it see? It will see that as of 22nd, this was the quantity for M200, 200. But when it goes back, it also looks at the issues and receipts, and issue was 300. That means ideally,
then how it will calculate starting 22, because you have already loaded till 25 and you have already activated the data till 25. So basically, you have changed your reference date to 25.
Yes, correct. The reference
so point, it should go back from 25, right? Not exactly from 22 also.
That's you're actually right. It should go back from the reference point, which is your record type 1. Correct. So here also, when I'm doing 22, it's not taking 22, it's basically going to the reference point, and then it is going back in time and showing me 100 and 200. Correct. So that is fine. But if I go further back, it will do again the calculation. It will start with reference point, then it will come to 22nd, and then it will go back. Now, if it goes back to 21st, it's fine. It can find the value. But if it goes back further, it does not have M200. So It will assume that M200 on 17th might have 500. Only then my after issue 200 was possible on 22nd. I think so. Let's try.
I think it should be 0. I don't know.
So let's give 17th, 22nd, 17th.
How system can assess that pass date?
System can assess the pass date by looking at the issues and receipts. Because it was 200 on 22nd, it goes back, 300 was issued. That means when it goes back, it has to add 300. Right? You are going back in time. That means you have to reverse what you did on 21st. So as of 17th, I have to add 300. Only then on 21st, if I issue 300, I will be left with 200. And what about M100? What will be the value for M100? Ashish?
M100 will be 150. On 100.
No, on 22nd
100,
it is
150. So 0 then.
Okay, let's see. On 22nd, it was 100. If I go to
And then
21st, there
150.
was nothing. 18th, there was an issue. That means 50 remains. And on 17th, there was 150 received. That made 200. Isn't it? See, look at this.
No, you go back, right? So after 100, you will need to add 50. So 150. And then minus 150, so then 0.
Wait. On 22nd, it was 100. If I go back to 18th, so
then it should be 150.
It should be 150 and
No, it should be 250 and
no, one second. So after issuing, on 17th there was stock receipt 150, and then 50 was issued 100. So 100 was there on 22nd. Correct?
Yeah.
That means on 17th it should be 150 only.
150. Yeah.
And for M200, I am expecting 500, but Ashish is saying it might be 0 also. So let's see. Yeah, 150 for M100 and 500 for M200. Now, this is something unique. This was not there in the data, but the query calculated because the value was not there and only the issue was there as 300. So that means it had to be 500 on 17. Assumption, this query is assuming This is not coming from the actual data. This query is assuming, and it is showing you that, buddy, on this 17 is 500. Only then all this makes sense to me. That means even though the material M200 did not exist, it is still showing up, isn't it? As per the calculation.
If we include stock received and other stock column also, then how it will show?
Yeah, it will show. Let's add that. It will show as per that calculation which happened at 500. So if I add issue and receipt,
no, it will just sum it up.
No, not here. Sheet definition. And see, now what we'll try to do is we'll try to add the validity, plant and material in the validity. What does the validity say? If you add validity, then it will not show anything for that material and plant if it did not exist. Right now it's showing because we have not added that in the validity. So we'll try to do that as well. Let me add this, save it. And execute it again. Okay, it's asking for the key date. So let me give the key date as
when you're executing, there was a couple of options. What were they, Devanshu?
Don't worry, those things we'll discuss when we will discuss the query. We have a separate session for query, BW query, we'll discuss that. So let's submit for 22nd first and let's see. So for 22nd, it's showing you, okay, issue and receipt on the query level. Let me see. Is it supposed to show or only the non-cumulative should be shown there? I think only non-cumulative on the query level. Let me try 17. So for M100, receipt is 150. For M200, there is quantity total stock is calculated, but issues and receipts is not there. Because on 17th there was nothing. There was no issue and receipt for M200.
Yeah. Let's check on 18th.
On 18th, this happened. On 18th, what happened? 050, right? So 50 and 0, but nothing happened for M200. Now if I give 21st, then your 300 was issued. And 21st, nothing happened for M100, so it will not show anything. And if I give a date where both happened, is there a date where both happened? No, there is no date where
only
both
on 22nd.
Only on 22nd, correct.
So basically, if you need...
But 22nd, we did not have any issue and receipt. There was only the one quantity. So that's why there won't be anything which will be shown for 22nd as issue and receipt, only for the total stock quantity to show. Now this is how the query works for inventory based on the key date. And now what I want to see, what will be interesting to see is actually this part. Okay, let's take a screenshot of this just to make sure that we have this with us. So it is 500. That's what I want to check actually. So here we have 500 for P400, M200 and 150 for M100. If I include the validity now, whether it will make any change is something we'll see. So what are we doing now? So now what we are planning to do is we are planning to include validity characteristics in inventory. And at the same time, we will see whether it's possible to do it while the data is there in the inventory ADSO or not. When data is there, in some ADSO, in any ADSO, whether it's inventory ADSO or regular ADSO, does not matter. Whenever you do a change, when data is present, it goes for something called remodeling. So there is a concept called remodeling in BW, and remodeling means the system has to do a set of steps to ensure that the data is rearranged, because you are adding some characteristics, you are adding some more granularity. So the data has to be rearranged, and that rearrangement is called remodeling in BW terminology. So we'll try to see if remodeling works or not. So what we'll do is, how do you add characteristics for validity? In the inventory tab, not in the RSDV. So this was also another question. So there is another T code which is associated with inventory, which is called RSDV. RSDV is basically to change or fix any inconsistencies in the validity values. So if you go to RSDV, right now our validity table, what is the value in the validity table? Let's see. So let me minimize this again. So in the validity table, the value, let's take validity number 4. Remember, validity is number 4, reference points is number 5. So right now it is 17 to 25. Okay. So if I go to RSDV, let me keep it here. The values, I'll keep it there. So if I go to RSDV, what will happen is it will ask me for the ADSO, of course. So we'll give the name ZDINVBT3. Okay, we'll execute. And what this will give us is the option to change the values of the validity, not add further characteristics. Adding of further characteristics will not happen from RSDV, only the change. If you think that the validity is somehow calculated wrong by the system, chances are very rare. Okay, usually system, 99% of the time system will be accurate, but sometimes 1%, because of some data load issues, because of some failures happening in the data load, you are trying to delete requests from the ADSO. So sometimes the calculation becomes inconsistent and the values are not updated properly in the validity table. In those exceptional scenarios, you'll come to RSDV and you can manually fix the value. Okay, in those urgent and exceptional cases only. Now this is where you will change and fix it, not add the characteristics. So now the question is, how do we add? Answer over here, do you want to exit? Yes. So I don't want to change because in my scenario it is fine, it is accurate. Now if I want to add further characteristics, then I go to the ADSO editor screen, I go to the inventory tab, and then I click on edit in the validity characteristics. And it will ask you that what characteristics you want to add. So for us, we'll add material and plant. I will add it here. And then I will say OK. So now in addition to CalDay, don't think that CalDay is gone and material and plant has taken its place. CalDay will always be there. The most granular time reference characteristics will always be a part of your validity. Additionally, you are adding material and plant. Now we'll try to activate it. Control F3. Validity has been added, material has been added, must be remodeled during activation if the ADSO is not empty. So that means a remodeling is important now, mandatory I would say, before you can activate it successfully. Remodeling rule has been created instead of activation. So activation has not completed. Activation is not done. It is still the previous version. If somebody else wants to work with this ADSO, they will not see this material and plant in the validity. They will still work with the previous activated version. So the new version is not yet activated. Instead of activation, a remodeling rule has been created. And where can you see that remodeling rule? There. On the top in the general tab, you can see that there will be a warning on the top just below the name of the ADSO. Remodeling is pending. ADSO is not activated. Please run remodeling. Click there. It will take you to Cockpit, BW4 HANA Cockpit. Now remodeling is done on the cockpit, not at the backend ADSO or not at the Eclipse. But yes, you can do remodeling. There are transaction codes available for remodeling if you want to do that at the backend. That's still possible. But now the default way is on the Eclipse, on the cockpit. So remodeling requests will be a separate tile. In fact, you can see that tile. If you go to the home page of your BW4 HANA Cockpit, you will see something called remodeling request. And this remodeling request, I have directly jumped. But if you want to see where it is, go to the home page of Cockpit. I think it's there in modeling. Monitoring. So if you go to monitoring, there is something called remodeling request, and it will show you on the tile that there is one pending request for remodeling. Because I clicked directly this warning, so it came directly on this particular remodeling. But if you have multiple remodeling, then you can come to this tile and you can do the remodeling. Now, this is a remodeling rule created. Status is not scheduled. So let's go inside, click on that. It will tell you how many steps will be performed in the remodeling. So here it is step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There will be 5 steps which will be performed for the remodeling. And right now it is not scheduled. You can either run it immediately or you can schedule it as well at a later point in time. If you want to execute, you can do that. So now we have an option run, we have reset disabled, restart disabled, reset step. Only these will be enabled if the run is attempted at least once. And then we have refresh to see how many steps are done. So let's quickly do a run. So I've clicked on the run. It's asking me, do you want immediate or do you want to schedule this? So I want to run it as immediate. So I'll click on OK. So now it will start. The remodeling is starting. Remodeling rule, info provider, ZD, INVBT3 scheduled. ID is this. So you can see the status is showing as running. The yellow triangle depicts running, and then your step number 1 is green. So you have to keep refreshing. So I hit refresh. You will see step number 2 is also done. What are these steps? So if you click on the particular step, okay. So right now you see step number 3 is convert. Convert is currently running. Step number 2. Okay, step number 2, save is completed. Step number 1, check is completed. Then we have step number 3. Let me see. Yeah. So 3, convert is running. Hit refresh again. And it's done. Remodeling is completed. Okay. So your step number 1 is complete. Step number 2 is complete. 3 is complete. If you want to see what happened during those steps, you can click on that individual steps and it will show you that what exact activities happened during that step. And then step number 5 is cleanup. So cleanup means what? Cleanup means backup tables are cleaned up. See, when the remodeling happens, what happens is there are some backup or shadow tables created. The system in the backend transfers the data to the backup table, and then it recreates the tables of the original ADSO, because now the granularity has changed for validity. So validity table has to be recreated. So it recreated those tables, and then it transferred the data back from the backup tables to original ADSO table. And finally, when it was successful, it deleted the backup tables. So this all happened in the backend, and the remodeling request executed 5 steps, and now it's complete. So now we'll come back to the ADSO. Hit F5. F5 means refresh. You will see that the warning is gone. But as a final step, activate the ADSO. Control F3. This time it should successfully activate because remodeling has been done. The rearrangement of data has been done. Okay, so we'll see the messages. Consistent, activated. So now the remodeling is completed and the ADSO is also activated. Now what we'll see is validity table. So I will close everything on the right. we'll have a fresh start. So now I will go to the table and validity table. Now I will see what is the value. So now the validity table has material and plant with the cal day added. And you will see that the material 39, this is SID by the way, surrogate ID. This is not the actual material. If you want to see the actual material, where do you have to go? You have to go to zero material. So we'll go to zero material and we will open the zero material info object. And when you open the info object, you will see that there is going to be SID table. For every info object, there are a lot of tables, and the main table is SID table. And where can you see the SID table? In the master data, or you can go to the properties. You can go to DDIC, and you will see all the tables: P table, Q table, M table. So there is SID table here. I'll display the data for this. And what is our SID? Our SID was 38 and 39. So we will filter on this, quick filter. I will put in list and then I will say 38 and 39. Okay. So this refers to M100 and M200. 38 is for M100. So that means, let me bring this table here. Okay. So actually let me bring SID table below. And this table, I'll put it back. Sorry. Yeah. So we have the SID 39, which is your M200. It starts from when? From 21st it starts. That means if you go back, the first day on which the material appeared in the data was 21st. So that's why the validity is 21st to 25th. And the material M100 appeared on 17th. So the validity is 17 to 24th, and this is from 21st to 25th. Okay, because on 25th there was no M100, only M200. So that's why 25th is there for M200, not for M100. So this is the validity now, that this has appeared on the scene on these dates. Now if you go to the query, let's see if the query still shows 500 or if it shows 0 on 17th for M200. So we'll double click on the query to open it. And then I'm going to just cross the table for SID. We already know the values now. And then we will do a reporting preview. Okay, let me do again, because sometimes what happens if it's minimized on the right hand side, the refresh is not connected properly. So you have to restore it below, and then if you hit, it will refresh. So you see it's saying refreshing. So now it will ask you for the key date of the query. So I'll just browse the key date of the query, and we will give our, first we'll see 22nd and then we'll go back to 17th. So 22nd 9 2020, we'll hit on submit. And here it is 100 and 200, which matches. This is fine. 100, 200. Now if I give 17 and submit, no, it's still giving me 500, but it is in square brackets. Square bracket means it does not it's a calculated one, and it did not exist. That will tell you that it did not exist. It's just a calculation which is happening at the query level. So this indicator has come in due to validity, but it's still showing 500. But it's giving you the information that this 500 is not there in the data. That means this did not exist. I'm just doing the calculation for the logic purpose. So this bracket means, see, bracket means there can be two things. Bracket either denotes a negative number or it denotes a calculated number. If like in BPC or in fact in regular BW data also, sometimes we have negative numbers, and negative numbers we don't want to show as minus, we want to show as bracket. So in those scenarios, the bracket will denote negative numbers. But in this case, the bracket is denoting that it did not exist. And I'm still showing you because I've done a calculation. Previously, it was just showing 500 without any indication that this did not exist. But now it's showing you with the indicator. So this is how the remodeling will work. If the data is there, the ADSO activation will not happen. You have to go to remodeling. You have to jump to the remodeling request on the cockpit and execute the remodeling, come back and refresh the ADSO and activate the ADSO.